Seeing your name on the manifest gave me a little extra incentive.
Oh, you look healthy. Time's been good to you.
Maybe on the outside. But you know what they say? A married man, lucky I'll get few. You're as beautiful as ever.
Save your charm for the crowd. You're gonna need it.
Speaking of which, I'm scheduled to brief your captain on tomorrow's negotiations. I'd love to get some dinner after. A lot of years to catch up.
Actually, I promised my kids I'd stay home tonight and watch a movie with them.
My God.
You have kids?
2 boys.
I'd love to meet them.
Maybe it's best that we should stay focused on the top of the game. There's a lot at stake here, and I don't think either of us need any distractions.
Right, I didn't mean to push. I was just excited to see you again. For what it's worth, it may be 25 years too late, but I'm sorry.
I don't want to keep you from your briefing.
Right. No distractions.
A lot of activities. Okay. More can come whenever.
Diplomatic receptions are an older custom. Think of it as a way for us to get to know each other before the war begins. I think I speak for everyone here when I say we very much hope that this temporary alliance will become permanent. Do not hope too fervently. Once the Khalan are crushed, the alliance will be dissolved. Only then will we celebrate.
Oh,
Well, still.
yes, I know. I see.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm closed. It's not every day one gets a chance to be part of this. But tonight, history is being made in this room. As we prepare to begin an epic journey into unexplored realms, we also take the next step toward healing the wounds of the past.
Look down.
And forging a new path toward lasting friendship. Here's to a better future.
Hey, I'm gonna take this bottle somewhere else. Move on. Down this. Can you handle this alone? How long?
Yeah, I'll just stay air and give myself cirrhosis.
Oh,
I feel like we should make this a weekly ritual. You and me draining a bottle? No argument here. You know, there's a line from a very old book I once read. It is only with greatest care that memory can be kept from becoming a prison or a gallows. I want that. You know, I was married once. What? Mm-hmm. You were married. Yep. How come you never told me this? I don't talk about it often. Who's the guy? Wait. No. Yeah. Admiral Christie, are you serious? You were married to Admiral Christie. It was a long time ago. I was a medical student at Union Point. He was one of my professors. We started seeing each other at the beginning of my final year. Kept it a secret until I graduated, and then 6 months later, we got married. The official story was that we'd only been together a short time and much to the altar. I don't think anyone was fooled. Never in a billion years have I pegged you as someone who hook up with your professor. Everything forbidden is sweet. So what happened? Long story short, I don't think he really wanted a wife. He wanted someone young and smiling to come home to at the end of the night after a long day's work, which was sort of how it was when I was still in school. But once the ranks were dropped, I was looking for a partner. He was looking for a big one. I gave him an ultimatum and he walked away. Were you devastated? At the time, I was crushed down. I questioned everything about myself. Every way I turned it over in my head, I kept feeling like I was the one at fault. Like I made a huge mistake. But when I remember it now, it's like I'm watching someone else's daughter. I'm sad for her, but I know she needs to learn her own lessons. That's been really hard seeing. Oh, weirdly, I think it was harder for him. Yeah, I get that. Pain can be worse when I find out things. Personally, I'd always rather be dumped than be the dumper. Same. Anyway, different lifetime, on to the future. Well, you and Phil single. And then there's 2 of them. I can't date anyone who dresses more glam than me.
We have considered your request for passage through our territory, and we are prepared to grant it. But there are certain conditions. We're listening. There is an uninhabited planet in space that is reaching our carrier. We use it in our propulsion systems.
I got.
We wish to secure extraction
That's fine.
points. Where? The third planet to the opposite. Well, I think that can be arranged. We need to get approval from the Union Council. Passage will be allowed for one vessel alone. If there are no incidents, we will consider further allowances. Well, I don't think anyone here would object to getting first solo crack at unexplored space. No, sir, we would not. Well, in our sense, your vessel will follow this course to the Matlov sector. Any deviation will be forbidden to you. Not exactly the quickest way to get there, but it shouldn't be a problem. Anything else? Upon entry into our telephone tracking beacon will be installed on your ship, so we can use coordinates.
That would be a violation of our security protocols.
I think it's all right, Commander. We really don't have anything to hide. Yeah. I'm sure we can find a way to accommodate. We have little to no information about the regions beyond your space that we intend to explore. Anything your cartographers could share with us would be greatly appreciated, especially concerning the Calaris menace. Do not intend to enter the expanse.
Why wouldn't we?
It is a domain of
The
evil.
fuck?
What do you mean? Demons dwell within the expanse.
Could you be a little more specific?
The Arcana warns of shadow realms, gateways to the depths of the underworld where demons lie in wait. to possess the souls of those who dare to stray within their reach. They corrupt all that is holy. Within their grasp, even the most righteous can be forced to commit unspeakable acts of depravity. Do you have any direct evidence that these demons really exist? It is written in the Arcana. That is all the evidence we need. We appreciate it. We'll take every precaution, but that area covers more than half the city. We are explorers. If it's all the same to you, we'd like to see for ourselves what's out there. We will not stop you, but do not expect us to save you.
Paramore.
Also, Ambassador, we wish you safe travels. Thank you again for your generosity.
Come on up, Jack.
I know I speak for the entire union when I say
Come on, Booby.
there's no greater gift than the promise of new knowledge.
What is that?
It is a prayer for those who are about to die.
No, Jack. How can I help you?
The question is, do we take their warning seriously? You're kidding, right? I mean, consider the source. I'm just suggesting the possibility that their claim, absurd though it may be, could indicate the presence of some real threat. And because they're krill, they process it through the lens of their religion.
Which still doesn't give us much of a roadmap. I mean, their religion is confusing, to say the least.
All religions are confusing. How do you think the priests fit in business? Did they offer any concrete evidence to support their claims? No. In fact, from what we gather, none of their ships have ventured into the expanse in more than a century. The copy of the Arcana we have in our database has a few passages about shadow realms, lots of colorful language about soul-sucking demons with 8 eyes and huge fangs, horror movie stuff. And if this were a horror movie, I'd say don't go into the house. But obviously their religion has a powerful influence over their perception of reality. Agreed, but it should not stand in the way of Union exploration. We need to seize the opportunity while we can. Ed, what do you think? Visions of horror always have mortal origins. If there is something out there, it's not supernatural.
Could still be dangerous.
Exploration always carries risk. Let's say we're risky. Very well. I look forward to your reports. Hello there.
Hi. I hear congratulations, Arnold.
We're traveled fast in this ship, huh? Is it? Cozy place.
I come here to work whenever I get tired of the office. Or when my kids are driving me crazy.
It reminds me of that little bistro we used to go to on King Street. What was it called?
Cafe Noir.
Yes. Some fun times.
So, when do you leave for Outpost 55?
I'm not leaving. I'm coming with you to explore the Necron sector.
Isn't that a little unusual for an animal?
Oh, yeah. They love keeping us behind desks, but this is typical past up.
I hope your decision didn't have anything to do with me.
No. I'm there. But you have been on my mind recently.
Is that?
I take you with me whenever I travel. Brings me good luck.
You kept it all these years.
Slaying some star. Not the kind of thing you just toss away. It's too rare. too special. You still have yours?
Paul, I'm happy to talk about the mission with you, but I don't want to dredge up any more of this. The hurt ran really deep for me, and I had to work very hard to dig it all out.
There's no vestige, no small whisper of feelings still there.
Sorry.
Oh God.
Just for lockdown. All departments report ready, sir.
The cloud given us final clearance. We're good to go.
Okay. Gordon?
Aren't you forgetting something?
Right. I didn't prepare anything.
What's the matter? It's traditional for the captain to give a shipwide announcement at the beginning of the new voyage. You know, a little pep talk.
I was going to write something last night, but I was just too wiped.
Just speak from your heart. That's all the crew wants.
All hands, this is the captain. We're about to enter unexplored space. I
Okay,
know you're
man.
all just as excited as I am,
Just
and I know
sore.
you're all going to do your best. So, let's give this everything we got, and may the force be with you. How was that? Set course and engage quantum drive. Isaac? That is correct. We haven't been formally introduced. I'm Admiral Christie. I am pleased to meet you, Admiral. Am I interrupting anything important? Yes. Oh. I am upgrading the scanner array.
What's up, Lily?
Well,
I
I won't
see
take too
you.
much of your time. I must admit I was a little dubious about meeting you. I came on serving on a Union ship after what happened. When I read the after-action battle report, I see that you've saved a lot of lives. I commend you for that. Thank you, sir. I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions. The entirety of my official report is available on the ship's computer. No, not about the battle. About Dr. Finn. I've heard from a few folks on board that you two were involved. That is accurate. Well, you know, I was with Claire too. A long time ago. Then we share a common experience. After all this time, she's moved on, but I'm afraid that I have. I hope you don't mind me telling you this. No, sir. I have observed many such paradoxes in human relationships. Well, people, I was hoping you could give me some insight into what makes Claire happy these days. Dr. Finn valued children above all else. She has often stated that she would sacrifice her own life for them. Come on. Her career as a Union medical officer is also a crucial part of her identity. She is highly empathetic and takes great satisfaction in helping others. She always has. Her recreational interests include music, dancing, fine dining, rain showers, and sexual relations. Her preferred mating positions include... Well, that's plenty helpful, Isaac. Thank you. Am I to understand that you find it a challenge to process her daily absence? Yes, you could say that. It is another common experience we share.
Oh.
Folks, welcome to the McLeod sector. First Union ship ever this fall.
Take it off the career bucket list.
Isaac, analysis of that star cluster. An OB association, approximately 2 million years old. 78 blue giant stars, along with several dozen F, G, and K stars in later stages of evolution.
Reminds me of Vegas.
Any life signs? I am detecting 347 habitable planets, but so far, no indications of intelligent life. Wow, it really is Vegas.
Captain, I'm picking up what looks like a distress signal.
Location?
Bearing 001 Mark 12, distance 16.4 light years.
That is inside the Polar Expanse.
Assuming it's no known. Negative, sir.
What about long-range scans? The expanse appears to be almost entirely empty space. There is one star system approximately 30.6 light years from the coordinates of the distress signal.
Free to go in?
Burke, set a course.
Aye, sir.
Approaching the edge of the expanse.
There are no stars.
How far does it extend? Scans indicate at least 800 parsecs. Take us in. Entering the haunted house.
We're approaching the coordinates.
What the hell is that?
I am detecting no propulsion systems and only minimal power. It appears to be a space station.
Send a hail.
No response. Maybe whoever it is can't respond. It could be injured.
The interior is pressurized, and there is a breathable atmosphere. Admiral, what do you say?
I wouldn't miss it for anything.
Talent, you're with Kelly and I. Ordis, you have the con. Tell Dr. Finn and Chief Lamar to meet us in the shuttle bay.
Aye, sir.
Anything resembling a docking port?
There's a large module towards the middle of the structure. It seems to be mostly empty. Could be a shuttle bay.
Take us in closer.
Something more coming.
Head slow. Really? You never turn around.
Look at the walls.
John,
It's an alloy of some kind that doesn't match anything already.
it's almost like it's organic.
What sense?
Nothing.
Fan out, but don't go far. Search the immediate area.
Better not touch anything. Sorry.
Oh god.
I think I found the source of the distress signal. Some kind of automated beacon.
Maybe
Four.
on that one. You forgot to turn it off.
Maybe. Yeah, look at this. There's energy flowing through them. Could be some kind of power relays.
Huh?
What happened?
Moved, huh?
It opened up. Expanded for a moment.
It'd be safer to analyze the data we have before we go any further. Mercer to Grayson. Doesn't look like anybody's here. Let's head back to the shop.
Acknowledged.
Cool. Dude, where's
Isaac and I have gone through these things.
nice
All we can tell you
guys?
is that the station is made out of some kind of highly advanced biotechnology. How it works or why it's there, you got me.
Do you think it's abandoned?
According to scans, there are no life forms currently on board. Or at least
Oh,
no life
come
is
on.
reported. What do you mean?
It's possible.
Oh my
that
god,
some
that thing
life
is
forms-
huge!
So different our scans can't even recognize them.
It's a valid point. One of the fundamental questions in astrobiology
My car not
is what
there?
comprises life. For all we know, the outpost itself is a life form. Sounds like kind of a
Oh.
stretch.
There are creatures on Telarius 7 that look like grubs. However, they are living organisms.
Hi, Char.
We'll continue to explore the region. If we get lucky, maybe we find something or someone who can shed some light on.
Admiral, what's wrong? Oh! He's having some conversation. Let me turn him off.
Oh. Any chance you feel like rolling for me? My mom sucks at it.
20 milligrams of
Sorry, it's just I'm doing the talk to text. I don't know. He was here.
Alright. Stabilize for now.
Doctor, what the hell is wrong with him?
Something is rewriting his DNA, and it's happening at an alarming rate. His growth contains photoreceptors in the retinal nerve. It's almost like it's a partially formed eye. Can we reverse it? I may be able to slow it down, but I don't know if I can stop it.
Whatever happened to him over there? Something our bioscanners missed.
I need more information, and I need it now.
Mom. bombs. Skill. Subpar. Oh.
Anything?
Some microparticulates of some kind. Report to Captain. Go ahead. Something going on over here. What is it? The stress beacon we found is broadcasting a new signal.
What kind of signal?
Coordinates of this outpost. Let's get back to the ship.
Oh. Do I know who?
Doctor.
Take it easy, Paul. You're in sick bay.
What's happening?
You were exposed to something on the station. We're trying to figure it out.
No?
It's so strange.
How would I know this person?
I'm just scared.
Nurse, would you give us a moment? Of course. Paul,
Wow.
I'm going to find out what's causing this. And I'll make a deal with you. You get better. And I'll make you some of that chocolate souffle you used to love.
I hated that souffle.
You did. You used to eat it all the time.
We were so proud of it. I didn't have the heart.
Oh, what happened to him?
I don't know.
It tasted like dried leaves.
Is he part alien now?
You
I
get
think so.
better. Or I'll
Well,
serve
that's
it to
super
you for
creepy.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
The ring is in my pocket. If I die, I want it with me.
You're not going to die, Paul.
Please.
Oh.
Thank you.
I'm going to save you.
What?
I promise.
Shuttle to Dr. Finn. We found something.
We need your eyes on this, but it looks like the animal was exposed to a bacterial spore of some kind. Doesn't match anything in our database.
We're bringing it to you for analysis. Recommend decontamination or
This
cauterizing.
is
Just be
real.
safe. Acknowledged. Paul? Mr. Bridge, Admiral Christie is gone.
What do you mean gone?
I mean, he's not in sick bay. Or is alert security.
Okay. Hang
I want to watch this more.
hang on. I need to make a phone call. Hey, Chloe. Oh,
Oh, I don't know.
why?
Like, how did it even do that anyway?
I don't know. Someone beat it up.
Did you eat it up?
Did not.
Good.
calling Rhea.
Madison?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. What's up with you?
Hi.
My nephew Charlie is with me, by the way.
Huh?
My nephew Charlie is with me.
Oh, no problem.
Listen, I have a big favor. I don't know if you I don't know if you heard or not. I totaled my car.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, well, I left my Malibu on like a little side street. I was wondering if at some point if you can take a gander over there and let me know if the that's okay. It's really no rush because like I can't drive with a broken arm anyway. It's just I need to get it off that person's street. The guy was really chill about leaving my car there. So like I don't see like anyone who was living there being a jerk about it because the guy who was like there, some like hippie dude, he was really chill about me like being parked there temporarily. But that was a few days ago, so are
Yeah,
you
just message me
It's literally that circle street that's in front of the laundromat.
yes.
But it would be
Yeah,
parked in the
I'll
corner.
go today because I'm going to see my mom's dude.
Oh, okay, cool. I just want to know if it's there or not, so I can go look for it at a scrapyard or wherever the fuck it might be.
Yeah.
Sorry,
When
Tar.
I'm done seeing my mom, I'll go check for your car, Mads.
Okay, super appreciate it, Rhea. How you guys doing?
Fine. Ivan's eating pizza with a wheel.
Okay, that sounds fun. Hi, Ivan.
And somebody's shooting a music video outside the door.
Again?
Somebody's shooting a music video outside of the door.
That's cool. So does that mean you're like trapped inside the Fatale?
Well, it's definitely one of those like little peak kind of things going on, I think.
Oh, that sounds not fun.
No.
Well, I have like a giant cast on my arm, so yeah, they use the jaws of life to get me out. Apparently,
Did you also break your hip?
my hip was like out of place, like out of the socket. So that was like the part that I woke up to was them putting my hip back in place.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, it was very painful. That was the only painful part, though.
Okay, but like you're good now.
For the most part, like I have to go for X-rays for like Wednesday or whatever. But like the faster I get my car back, the faster I get back to Fatale and back to normal life. Whatever the fuck that means.
But you're not losing your license?
No, fuck no, I didn't do nothing.
Oh wow, okay.
No, I literally just fell asleep while driving.
Wait,
Okay.
Yeah, no, I took a nap in the parking lot when I got to Fatale because my the Malibu died in the like on the side street, and I went and I packed everything into my truck, and I was gonna drive my truck back to Lachine, and I didn't make it.
You didn't make it?
No,
Yeah.
I took a nap in the parking lot of Fatale, and then I left, and I don't really remember even leaving.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think I was chilling with I was chilling with Brad at one point. And apparently I did not sleep enough to drive because on Notre Dame somewhere I just toppled.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got
And
this.
they couldn't really get me out, so they had to like literally like tear apart my car to get me out apparently. Yeah, so I didn't get my car scrapped. I had to pay for my car to get scrapped actually. So that's great. Anyway, yeah, no, I figured you'd probably be like the only person that I can ask to do like such a feat of checking for my other car.
I'll actually leave.
Thank you, Rhea.
You know.
I really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Now we can watch.
Yes, now we can watch the TV.
Commander, someone is accessing main power.
Who?
Unknown. They are initializing a deafening field.
Override.
They cannot. They're using level 9 command codes. I am locked out.
I'd bring Rhea home, I guess. You like Rhea, she's nice. Nice person.
Bridge to engineering.
All systems are inoperative, Commander. Engines too, you can hear it.
Can you tap into auxiliary power?
Not from the bridge. I will need to go to engineering.
Isaac, go with me.
It's no use, we've lost main power. Go check on my kids. Keep an eye on sick bay. Yes, sir. Doctor? Hello?
Oh, Josh.
Doctor?
I love you.
Person order. Kelly, can you hear me? She can't. It's like all systems are offline. There's a shipwide damping field.
What's causing it?
No idea, but once we're on board, comm scanners and weapons are going to be useless. We're going to have to dock manually.
You look so scared.
Yeah, I just saw that guy, and I think it was the guy with those like 3 eyes on the left and.
Oh, the half alien guy.
Yeah, and it turned into an actually like full alien.
Be careful.
Like what the?
What the?
Boys? Are you here? Ty? Marcus?
Mom? Mom?
We should go back. Mama said there's an emergency. We should wait in our quarters.
Look, I don't want to sit in my room staring at the window at all that darkness. It gives me the creeps. Come on, gotta find it.
Got the power cell out yet? No, you really jam these things in there. Try twisting it. Did. Usually it doesn't pop right out and get the Thanks.
Kelly.
Somebody shut down all power. I think I made that on Man, there's something else.
Poor Brittany. Such a good person too. She's got such fucking shit all the time. What? Really? It just seems like the nicest people always like are getting like the shit end of every stick. You know what? A lot of native families are doing this. They're getting potbelly pigs and like replacements of dogs. The thing is, they're starving. You starve them. Really? Yeah, that's how they stay small. Yeah, well, no, they're not supposed to stay small. Hey. Stay here. Hi. Come here. Oh, with the mosquitoes already. I just hit my broken leg. Ah, that hurt. Hi. I crashed my car. But I'm okay. I'm alive, so that's good. Sorry? That's what matters, is I'm alive. Yeah, absolutely. Jacko. Yeah, definitely. Come here, Jack. Could have been worse. But good thing. Gonna drive more carefully, that's for sure. Have a good one. You sit. This thing is ridiculous. I think I got this from my dad. I love my neighbors. They're so nice. It's ridiculous. Why? I love my neighbors so much. Did you hear a neighbor? Okay. You hear the lady across the street? The lady from Barbados across the street. She's like, Madison, what did you do? I was like, I crashed my car. She was like, well, you're gonna be more careful now, right? You have to take it easy. Great neighbors. I'm gonna choke on it. No, it's not working either. Very upset. I just want to smoke pot. Okay. Oh no. Hello.
There you go. You can walk. You can walk.
Come on, Will.
Why are you scared?
Why are you so scared of me? Come on.
You outrun her right now. Let's go.
Come on. Yeah, you could definitely outrun me. Ah. Okay. Look at that pipe. There's no choke on it. It's not meant for smoking pot. It's meant for smoking tobacco. Yeah, well. Actually, people like roll their own joints now. I mean, roll their own cigarettes. Like people that are my age get bags of tobacco and roll their own cigarettes. No, people are chewing it too. Chewing tobacco is nasty. All tobacco's nasty. Especially the chew tobacco. It's fucking gross.
I don't know. He's in this room. He's sitting.
No, he's with me. Yeah.
Like outside with you?
No, he's the end of the room. He's watching Orville. I think that's what it's actually based off of. Yeah.
What is?
The Orville. He's
Yeah, you see
here.
this Let's go in there. See if I can get it.
Okay, you have to leave what happened? Wait, hang on, I got my computer.
You got like old man here saying.
What's up, Josh?
You like yesterday? You're like, oh, I did all these other things. I'm like, we don't want your hair.
I have to take my dog for a laugh. I don't know how I'm gonna do that.
Try to get him to go before so he didn't want to go.
Hey, you wanna go? Okay. Jack, let's go for a walk?
Come last night. No problem at all.
Yeah, well. This is the crock pot. This is the crock pot.
What crock pot?
So that's on the counter?
This is rice cooker.
That does not look like a rice cooker. I shall return. always crying? Oh, what a Corvette! Charlie, is this gonna scare you? I'll change it to something else that scares you.
Yes.
Okay, well maybe change it.
Mother of what?
Don't say that word. Okay, alright, well I'm listening to make sure you don't. Because that means I get in trouble.
Wait, this is number 2? Oh shit.
Let's get you streaming. Here's a quick tour of your new Roku player. We'll start with your remote. Press home at any time to return to the home screen. Back always returns to the previous screen. And star shows additional options. Press this button while streaming to see the options menu. Press and hold the mic button on voice remotes or the free Roku mobile app to search for entertainment, control your streaming, and more. Now, let's check out your home menu. Visit Streaming Channels to find your favorites and discover new ones. And search to see where to stream things for free or at the lowest cost. Plus, be sure to check out the Roku channel for more free entertainment. And that's it. Happy streaming.
Oh, I really like watching these.
Okay. I'll be right back and take the dog for a walk.
Ninjago Legacy sets, 2 new Lego architecture sets, and a first look at the brand new Lego forms. First up, we're launching some incredible new Lego Ninjago Legacy sets for this year. Now, every time I talk about Ninjago, he manages to get his hands on my mug. This time I'm one step ahead of him. I've tied this red string to the mug. Now, if he takes it, I'll be able to follow it and find out exactly who he is. You check out the latest Ninjago sets. I'm onto it. The new Lego Ninjago sets include Jay Storm, Comes Earth Driller, Lloyd's Kendo Training
wanna buy the
and the incredible military.
Oh.
This huge build opens up to reveal the action-packed
The
ninja set
Ninjago.
with golden weapons, the sword of fire, the nunchucks of lightning, the
Oh.
quakes, and the shurikens of ice. Plus 8 minifigures to roleplay in the sword spinning or fruit cutting training stations. Sleeping. Yeah, the weather today is just going to be a little bit ropey with a sunny. The string continues this way. I'm going to check it out. You check out those new Spin Jitsu spinners. There are 6 all-new Lego Ninjago spinners with reattachments for attack, defense, and speed modes, giving you the chance to create your own challenges and beat the controls. What do you call a tangled tree in space? An astro. No. Astronaut. Military food in the string. You check out the Ultra Dragon. The Ultra Dragon features a dual minifigure cockpit, posable wings and tail, 4 snapping jaw and stun shooting dragon heads, and a handle for switchability. I must have missed them. If you spot them again in this episode, let me know in the comments. Now, where are my clothes? Next up, They've released 2 new LEGO architecture sets, the San Francisco and the Paris Skylines. The latest additions to the LEGO architecture themes take after the sets before them, like the Shanghai, London, or New York skylines. They're scaled to give an accurate representation of the comparative size of the feature structures with realistic colour depiction. To tell us more about the sets, I sent our roving reporter Westertile to get a closer look. Wester, what have you found? No, not Tyler, I'm in the sea. The sea? The sea. I see. Do you? Not really. Well, you see, I couldn't decide whether to go to Paris or San Francisco, so I went halfway between the two. Which is where exactly? Well, it's somewhere in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. So you haven't seen the Paris skyline? With its iconic Arc de Triomphe, Champs-Elysees and Eiffel Tower, built at 22 centimetres high with 694 pieces. I haven't seen the San Francisco skyline. Built with 629 pieces, it includes the city's famous painted ladies buildings, Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz Island. No, I didn't see that. So then what have you seen? Found fish. Where is it? It's on the way. Back to you in the studio. That's time for your comments. Yadira Salsa says, so cool, great job, Lego Lab. Thanks, Yadira Salsa. Rachel Lightcap says, you're not funny at all. No, Rachel Lightcap. I'm Tyler, but I like this game. You're not Nigel at all. You're Rachel Lightcap. And back to you in the studio. Back to you in the studio. Yadira Salsa says, so cool, great job, Lego Lab. No, Rachel Lightcap. I'm Tyler, but I like this game. You're not Nigel at all. You're Rachel Lightcap. And thank you to all of you that wished me and the entire news team a happy new year. There are so many of you, I can't read them all out, but I'll put them up on the screen while I do. Awesome, Baraka Soma. Get it? That's cool. Let me carry on. You check out my fan build of the week. Get it? This week we're looking at the Lego Fire Truck build by Alexander Studios. This incredible video not only gives you a step-by-step guide on how to create your own version of the original build, but also includes some stop-motion videos of the truck in action. Amazing work, Alexander Studios. Check out my video of the week. This week we meet the designers behind the latest LEGO Movie 2 set, Apocalypse Bird. In this video we get an exclusive look at the inspiration, design and development behind the incredible 3,000-piece set, which was released earlier this month. Well, that's it for LEGO news and all that's going on in the LEGO world. What's going on in your world? Let us know in the comments. Breaking news. Just it. I can now announce that the brand new LEGO theme, LEGO Former, has finally been set for release. This new theme unleashes creativity on our adult creators and builders. Based on the LEGO Technic building system, the sets are designed for you to be able to customize different skins to create artistic interpretations of plants and animals. The first release is a model of a fish, and we can't wait to see what you guys come up with. If you back the project, your LEGO Former set will be shipped to you soon. Well, that's it for LEGO news and what's going on in the LEGO world. Tune in next Sunday. Our new LEGO Movie 2 set. Get ready for some new LEGO store events and release 3 all-new LEGO brickheads. It's the LEGO News Show. First up, we are only a few weeks away from the release of the LEGO Movie 2, the second part. And to celebrate, we've got some brand new LEGO Movie 2 sets. Welcome to Apocalypse Bird is the biggest LEGO Movie set since Metal Beard's Sea Cow pirate ship. Made from over 3,000 pieces, the set stands at a huge 20 inches tall. It includes 12 minifigures, a rooftop diner, Wild Styles headquarters, Scribble Cop's office, and of course, a coffee shop. To tell us more about the sets, we sent our roving reporter, Westertile, to get the inside scoop. Wester, are you there? Yes, Tyler, the crowd is buzzing here at the premiere of the LEGO Movie 2. Premiere. Oh. And I, for one, had a lot of questions about this movie. So, Wester, for the last time, the LEGO Movie 2 isn't out yet. Have you gone to see the LEGO Movie again? Not going to make that mistake again. I got the ticket right here, and it says, where is it, Mercy? Yeah, so I saw the Let Go movie. The Let Go movie. Yeah, the Let Go movie 2. So you haven't got anything to tell us about the Let Go movie 2 since? I don't. Right, well, I send you to go get an exclusive look at the Lego Movie 2 sets, and you can't tell me anything about it. Whoa, they're tight. Just remember the last lines of the Let Go Movie 2. Just drop it. Thanks, myself. Brilliant as always. You can check out the trailer for the Lego Movie 2 in the description below. Next up, now we all know good things come in threes: little pigs, French hens, tricycle wheels, Wireless Rock Collection, and now these all new Lego Brickhead sets. Oh, well, very tiny. Maybe one of these are for you. Let me tell you about them and then you can decide. No, not like a game show. No! If you're looking for a guy dressed like a dragon who dance, then you're gonna love contestant number 1. It's Dragon Dance Guy. This 170-piece Lego brickheads comes together to create the costume dancer and 2 celebrating dances just in time for Chinese New Year. But if you're tired of dancing and you're looking for a few laughs instead, then why not pick the birthday clown? This cute character comes complete with candy cake, clown nose, colorful balloons, carefully wrapped birthday gift, and a happy birthday flag with 10 language options available. But wait, there's more. Don't make your decision before seeing the all-new Lego Brickheads Valentine's Puppy. This lovable set comes with a heart of rose and posable ears. It is also standing in a nature scene lined by flowers, making it the perfect Valentine's gift. But Johnny, which Lego Brickheads will you choose? The choice is yours. You don't have to say, we can ask these guys to help. Which of the Lego Brickheads do you think Tiny would like best and why? Let us know in the comments below. Tiny, we really don't have time for this. We need to be in the comments. First up. No, but actually, it is. Started. Miguel Lego Ramirez says it's called Tiny. The brick says Tiny needs to join a choir. Trisha Aurora says my favourite moment is when Tiny sings. Katie Crestwood says Tiny when singing is actually good. These are all about you. I'm not going to. I would, but no. I'm not going to. Just can't do it. Sometimes. My name is Tyler. How was that? So you said 5 last, then. This week we're looking at Small Brick City's latest build, the Lego Pizza Stand, a small build that packs in a lot of detail. In this film, Small Brick City talks us through his inspiration, brick source, and a step-by-step guide on how to create your own pizza stand at home. Thanks, Small Brick City. That's it. Starting with the Lego Flintstone set, we get a glimpse of the 100th episode of Lego Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu, and we get under the skin of an anatomical project Lego Island. First up this week, the fantastic new Lego Flintstone set has been released. A winner of Lego Ideas, this ultra retro set lets you hang out with the Flintstones in the town of Bedford. It has cartoon character minifigures from the classic series, Modern Stone Age family, Fred and Wilma Flintstone, and best friends Barney and Betty Rock. You can check out the quarry, head home in the car, relax on the stone sofa, and learn holding. The Lego Flintstone set is available online and in store now. Next up, Lego Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu is coming to its 100th episode. Some images are leaked online to give us a clue as to what we can expect. They include the main characters from the series with some teasing captions, including Lloyd, Kai, and the evil Gargoyle. The story arc is called March of the Oni, and I cannot wait to find out what happens. What do you think is going to happen in the 100th episode? Let us know in the comments below. Next up, an exciting new anatomical Lego project has been announced. Versatile has more. Tyler, the Anatomini project has reached over 10,000 supporters on Lego Ideas. Created by Stefan Nix, the set is an anatomically correct skeleton with its main organs and blood vessels, all captured in a 10x1 scale movie. The model can be opened to reveal a skeleton with all its main bones, as well as ears, eyes, and brain. The brain can be taken apart to access the brain center. Yeah, just get a little bit squeamish and all this stuff. Show me some more. Let's just get this stuff. The Anatomini's digestive system includes the esophagus, spleen, stomach, liver, pancreas, gallbladder, small intestines, appendix, colon, and bladder, all rendered in exquisite gruesome detail. Great work, Stefan. Amazing work. Wester, are you okay? Just like Wester, I've actually been working on my own Lego idea. You know, I've been thinking, what is the next idea? What is incredibly attractive as a model? I introduce to you, Tyler, as well as the rest of the Lego news team. Wester with the optional raincoat, Tyler with the detachable brain. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Sorry. Not to forget, Tiny. Now it's time for our build-up now. Builder Bricksmith has created a tiny house on wheels, or what's sometimes known as a tumbleweed. Built on an 8x16 base plate, the house has a detachable roof. It features a toilet and a 4x4 toilet. Amazing Bricksmith. A perfect tiny house. No. Now it's time to check out my video of the week. Try This at Home is back with another incredible new episode. In this week's challenge, Callum and Josie tried to win an art competition using Bernie the Lego Booth robot. The two artists used Bernie and NTR4 to create their masterpiece. As ever, this episode of Try This at Home has all the tips and tricks you need to get your boost on at home. Love it. Now it's time to check out your YouTube comments. We got Lego room. City. Or Tyler. City. Or Tyler. Has all the tips and tricks you need to get your boost on at home. Love it. Now it's time to check out your YouTube comments. Miguel Lego Ramirez says, hello. Miguel Lego Ramirez, hello. Escrima Boy says, poor Tyler secretly wishes he could request up in Park Lake City. Poor Tyler. Of course I want to be with Western Park Lake City, it's awesome. Like this name says, do a dance tiny. Tiny. That's all we've found for on this week's Lego news. And the all-new Lego created Ford Mustang set to celebrate the release of the Lego Model 2 at Legoland. And we check out a sporty new Lego. It's the Lego Show. First up, a new Lego Creator Expert Series Ford Mustang set has just been announced. We sent Wyler Test to find out more. Wyler, are you there? Tyler, this is driver one. Right. Tyler, I'm in pursuit of the new Lego Creator Expert set, the Ford Mustang. The set is the latest in the Lego Creator Expert Series. It's a magnificent recreation of one of America's most iconic cars, the 1967 Ford Mustang Shelby. It has a working steering system, moving doors, and a trunk that opens and closes. It also comes with a number of optional parts that let you create your own customized version, including sports exhaust, a spoiler, and air intake for the bonnet. Wyler, where are you? I think I might be lost. Can somebody come and rescue me? Great work, Wyler. Keep it up. Next up, Legoland Parks and Discovery Centres have announced some exciting new events to celebrate the launch of the Lego Movie 2. The events let you join Emmett, Wildstyle, and Sweet Mayhem for exclusive building activities, character experiences, and interactive photo opportunities. You can build a spaceship inspired by Benning, build your own escape vehicle to flee from the Duper alien invasion in Brickburg, or explore Miniland on a scavenger hunt to find the Lego Movie 2 characters. And to top it off, you can also snap a photo with your favourite Lego Movie characters. So that's my weekend sorted for the next 2 months. Now it's time to check out my build of the Away Day. Joe has built some of Germany's biggest stadiums from Lego bricks. This is his build of FC Nürnberg's famous Max Moritz Stadium. Joe has set it up to host the Olympic 100-meter final, featuring a running track and a awards podium. Each stadium takes 2,000 bricks. So far, he has built 7 of them. The clubs are so impressed, he's been given stadium tours and signed shirts by some of Germany's top teams. And his work has even been showcased by the Bundesliga. Looks incredible. Now it's time for our video of the week. The latest in a series of masterclass videos, this tutorial shows you how to make a scene with the Lego Movie 2 Movie Maker and free app, giving you all the tips and tricks to create your own stop-motion blockbuster. This video focuses on how to use sound and visual effects to put the finishing touches to your masterpiece. Wow, looks incredible. I can't wait to get started. Now it's time to check out your YouTube comments. Philip Nicholas says, cannot wait for the Excelsior and happy Valentine's Day, Tyler. Thanks, Philip Nicholas. I can't wait for the Excelsior too. Hope you have a good one. Simon Birch says, you are the best Lego channel on YouTube. No, Simon, you are the best Lego channel on YouTube. Axonwood Studios says, Tyler, what is your favourite Lego movie? Well, Axonwood Studios, it would definitely have to be the Lego movie. Lego Movie 2. The Lego Batman movie. Jargo movie. I can't make my mind up. Let me know what your favourite is in the comments below. And Perfect Sign Blog says, by the way, Tyler, the ninja took in Valentine's gift and the mug. What? And don't forget, when we reach 50,000 subscribers, we'll be doing an amazing YouTube comment special. I can't wait for that. That's all we've got time for on this week's Lego. Breaking news just in. Lego Hidden Side, a new immersive Lego experience, has been announced. The app lets you bring your Lego sets to life, solving mysteries, battling ghosts, and defeating bosses. Looks incredible. It's scary. That's all we've got time for on this week's Lego news and all that's going on in the Lego world. And the Lego Creator Experts launch festive fun at Legoland resorts around the world and prepare for a blue new year with the 2019 Lego Jurassic World Challenge. Here's the Lego news. Here's the Lego news. First up, we are so excited to take a look at the brand new this week Lego Creator Expert set, the Corner Garage. The new set is a 3-level modular corner garage and is the latest addition to the Lego Creator Expert modular builds. Join in the street alongside the downtown diner, Alice Cinema and Detective's office. On the ground floor is Joe's garage, where you can refuel and repair your Lego vehicle. Head up the stairs to Dr. Jones's vet, where a little girl is bringing her rabbit for a checkup, or continue to the top floor to visit a young guy's apartment, eat with bed, sofa and TV. Luckily for us, our roving reporter Wendy Tile managed to get a closer look at each of the levels of the modular build, starting with Joe's garage. By stepping in. Not really, Tyler, it is quite loud in here. Joe is working as we speak. Can you tell us a little bit more about the door that rolls up? Actually, Tyler, I thought I'd tell you about the door that rolls up. This is where the Lego cars enter Joe's garage. By turning the wheel on the side, the door looks like a rolling shutter at a garage. Ah, looks great. And what's inside the garage? I can't tell you that, Tyler, but I can tell you what's inside the garage. The Lego cars can be moved into a working car lift that fills them up so Joe can get a closer look underneath. There's also a load of interesting tools, a garage shop to buy spare parts, and a minifigure of Joe herself. Wow, and what about outside? Is that the gas pump? No, Tyler, it's actually the gas pump where you can refill your Lego car. The interesting detail on the gas pump is the logo for Optic, which Lego fans will recognise as first being seen on a racing car set. There's also a tow truck with a moving crane on. That's it for the ground floor garage. I think I'll head upstairs and check out the vet. We'll catch up with West on Wednesday. Next up, the festive season is upon us. We're 9 days into December and we're already so excited for the big day. To celebrate, we've launched some festive fun at different Legolands all over the world. Yes, we're opening the doors over the winter months to Legoland Windsor, where you can ride the Brickmas Express to Santa's Grotto, visit the festive additions in Miniland, or take part in a Lego scavenger hunt and festive builds. Legoland Japan are also joining in every day with festive shows, activities, seasonal menus, and attending to top things. I cannot wait to get there and check out all the festive fun. I'm more impatient than a rabbit at the vet.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of rabbits at the vet, what's this getting on? Wester, are you there at Dr. Jones's pet vet yet? Yes, I'm here at the waiting room of Dr. Jones's vet. Wester, do you have my mug? Yes, you see, I could only get in if I had a pet. Shh! Is that tiny in the rabbit costume? No. Oh, it's great. There's a waiting room, a clinic, and we're surrounded by animals. A parrot, a frog, and even a fish tank built into the wall, as well as the minifigure of Dr. Jones himself. Let's go now, Tyler. Tiny. Thanks, Wester. We'll catch up with him when he's on the top floor of the apartment. Until then, enjoy your comments. Sounds awesome. And Creative Brick says, did the Lego news slip come back to you? They're into this moment from episode 59. Thanks, Wester. Next up. Well, Creative Bricks have spent a long time training and perfecting how to throw a card from this hand to this hand. Shit, this hand. That's the final news story. I'm gonna find that. You can check out my video of the week. This week we're looking at the new Lego House to Academy video. This is part of a series of tutorials we launched that will help you learn to be a master builder. So far we've covered Yeti monster, penguin, pirate, treasure chest, and even a dinosaur. This latest episode gives you step-by-step instructions on how to build a Lego guitar. Watch and learn and thank you later. Almost got it. You can check out my fan of the week. This is the latest build from the channel Brick Bakery, showing a small Lego fantasy match. The video gives you a closer look at the original build and an impressive design that manages to create a bridge without using any arched bricks. Brick Bakery also tells us a small story to accompany the fantasy scene. This build was uploaded using the hashtag build of the week. Tag yours for a chance to be featured. It's no use. I'm never going to get that card back. Oh yeah! Brand new exciting release. The Lego Jurassic World 2019 wall calendars are available now. This 16-month calendar offers a new Lego Jurassic World themed design which will be final months in 2018 and the whole of 2019. These original and funny pictures include all of your favourite Lego Jurassic World characters, dinosaurs, and vehicles. Well, that's nearly everything this week. We've just got enough time to see if Wester has reached this second floor apartment. Wester, are you there? Yes. That's a big challenge. Vintage television, sofa, and even a record on the wall, which was first seen at the downtown garden set. That's all very good, Wester. Why are you whispering? So I wanted to get to interview with you. I think he's still sleeping. Try and wake him up. No, that's the way. But, no, I'm away. Thanks, Wester. The new Lego Creator Expert Cora Garrison will be available for the new year. Well, that's it for this week's Lego news. Everything that's going on in the Lego world. What's going on in your world? Let us know in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up. The latest set from the Lego Movie 2 to the second part. And check out the latest Lego Ideas contest and get into the festive spirit with the latest Lego franchise. It's the Lego News Show. First up this week. Have you seen the latest trailer for the Lego Movie 2 the second part? I'm so excited. It's only 2 months to go until the movie comes out, and to celebrate, we have unveiled 19 brand new sets. As well as appearances from some of your favourite characters from the first Lego movie, the new sets also include new characters, vehicles, and mech suits, including Sweet Mayhem's sister Starship, Rex Dangerous Explorer, and the pop-up party box. To tell us more about the sets, we sent our roving reporter Wester to get us the inside scoop. Wester, are you there? Yes, sir, the crowd is buzzing here at the premiere of the Lego Movie 2 premiere. Yes, sir, I've been one of the first to see the new movie. Yes, sir, and I have a lot of questions. Question one, why did Emma? It's just not realistic. Emma is in that. I've seen the trailer. Question two, why is the film mostly for games? You've seen the Lego Movie 2. It doesn't come out from February this year. Good one, Tyler. But I put the ticket right here. And it clearly says that. So, I saw the leg movie. Yeah, I saw the leg movie.
What are you looking at, Dad?
So you can't actually tell us anything about the Lego Movie 2 sets. There's new sets. Well, like the characters' vehicles.
My flowers.
Well, yes, but there are also 3 all-new builder boxes for Mark's building adventures. Emmett and Lucy's builder boxes each have 3 buildable models.
What are you watching?
And King will never work to build whatever box
Everything
to rebuild the shape shifted Star Queen in 15 different forms. From a clunky volcano to a happy butterfly. Wow, they sound great. I can't wait to see that movie. Yeah, well, you're going to have to wait till February. But then you can make your own Lego movie, the Lego Movie Maker. With this set of the free downloadable app, you can make your own Lego movies. With changeable backdrop, movable camera stands, and built-in sliders to easily move the characters and the game's plan. When will these all be released though? Not long now, and the set should be on sale later this month. That gives me enough time to watch the Lego Movie 3. Thanks, Wester. Brilliant as always.
Wait, there's a Lego Movie 3?
Lego Movie 2 in the sidebar. Next up, do you ever feel that something is missing?
Was there a
That's the question when asking over at Lego
I don't know if
Ideas.
there's a Lego
You
Movie
answer the
3.
question by entering our latest contest. Yes, we've invited you once again to use your creative skills over at Lego Ideas. This time to build an add-on to any Lego Creator 3-in-1 set. Your add-on can be big or small to give your set that finishing touch or to take it to a whole level. The competition is open for 2 more days, so head over to Lego Ideas for details on how to enter and be in with a chance to win 15 Lego Creator 3-in-1 sets. Each set is 3-in-1, and there's 15 of them, then technically you win. 46 cents, 45 cents, 45 cents. What's your favourite Lego Creator 3-in-1 set? Let us know in the comments below. No comments, let's check out yours. Marco Barbosa says, hello Lego Lab, aka the best channel. And hello Marco Barbosa, aka the legendary Green Text. The Night Owl says, you're funny. Oh, the Night Owl, I'm Tyler West. Funny West is over there. What do you get when you pass and funny chance. Got you, yeah, I know, cool, right? Puggy Play says, I love the editing. Do more awesome editing. Got it, Puggy Plays. You're welcome, Puggy Plays. You like that, then you're going to like this playable piano set, which is my bamboo. This concert piano build from Sleepy Cow's Lego Corner accurately captures the mechanical details of an actual piano, including 25 independently working keys, height adjustable bench, open piano lid, working pedals, and an incredible self-playing function which allows keys to play at different tempos and rhythms. On top of all this, it's a beautiful, realistic build. Great work. Now it's the 2nd of December today, which means the countdown is in. And you can follow up to the big day with my video of all of it. Join me every day as I open a new window from the Lego City Advent Calendar and show you a new build for that day. Expect a lot of fun builds, bad cracker jokes, and festive surprises. And if that hasn't got you excited enough for the festive season, then maybe this will. The latest Lego brickheads, Mr. and Mrs. Claus. Yes, to celebrate the holidays, we've released this season celebrating celebrity couple with 341 Lego pieces. Mr. Claus comes with his iconic hat, bushy beard, and gift sack complete with gifts and buildable tree, whilst Mrs. Claus comes with a buildable candy stick and a salted cake with cookie elements. Well, that's it for Lego Minis and all that's going on in the Lego World, tune in next Sunday where we'll be announcing a brand new Lego Creator Expert modular building. It's going to be great. Don't miss it. See you then. Alright. So, what do you think with the cross of a refrigerator and a radio? New Chinese New Year Lego sets. We take a sneak peek at the Lego Movie 2 video game, and we take a look at an exciting new episode of Try This At Home. It's the Lego Show! First up, to celebrate the Chinese New Year, we are releasing 2 new Lego Chinese New Year sets. Versatile as well. Coming up, we have released 2 new Lego sets to celebrate the Chinese New Year. First up is the Chinese New Year's Eve dinner set. It features a family of 6 minifigures with grandparents, parents, and kids. The set even has their meal, bowls of rice, fish, chicken, and crab. Also announces the brand new Dragon Dance set. The set pays homage to the traditional Dragon Dance which takes place during the Chinese New Year. It features a mechanical crank that moves the dragon up and down, as well as 4 dancers in their dancewear, and a re-release of Piggy Guide to celebrate the Year of the Pig. Wow, that sounds amazing myself. I love dragons. Listen, where are you? I'm in the Dragon's Cave, Tyler, to get an exclusive interview for Lego Mix. But isn't that dangerous? Don't worry, Tyler. With no respect, I've disguised myself as a dragon. You're in extreme danger. You are not a dragon. Hey there! Hey! How you doing? Yeah? Just hanging around. Oh, far too kind. Hey! Are we gonna be best friends? Alright.
It's still lying.
Back to your studio time. Alright. The Lego Chinese New Year sets will be released exclusively in the Asian Pacific region on the 1st of January 2019. Let us know how you would build your New Year's Eve out of Lego bricks in the comment section below. But now, an exciting announcement of the Lego Movie 2 video game. In this soon-to-be released adaptation, you play Emmett and a host of heroic characters as they go beyond their world to save their friends from the strange inhabitants of the Sistar system. You can journey into outer space, discover new worlds, and test your master-building skills. The game features 100 characters from both Lego movies, including Emmett, Lucy, and Lego Land. The new game will be available online and in stores for most platforms February 26, 2019. Next up, if you like robots and you like battles and you want to try this at home, then you are going to love our new robot battle episode of Try This At Home, which is our video rocker. This amazing new video sees 2 brain-boosted warriors transform Vernie into a fully-fledged battle robot. Featuring bashing, firing, and ramming, this episode gives you all the tips and tricks you need to be a Lego Boost robot champion. Looks spectacular. Yeah. Next up is our founder of the husband and wife team Mike Harris and Catherine Waitman have built an 8-foot-tall advent calendar. The calendar made from 450,000 Lego bricks has 24 numbered windows, each with a theatrical scene inside. Behind one window, elves load presents onto a sleigh. Other scenes include festive dinners, gingerbread houses, and of course, a room full of snow. What the days are coming! Great work, Catherine. A fantastic tribute to the festival season. Now it's time for your comments. Joseph Lamack says, I love Lego and Tiny West, please sing. Joseph Lamack, please. Some comments now from our advent calendar videos. Spooky Harrison opened his Lego Star Wars advent calendar and says, I've got Luke's land speeder. Also, I love Lego. Great one, Spooky Harrison. I did too, it's great. Mike Bridgestone says, Tiny should definitely get the Lego Friends advent calendar. Who could be friends with the Lego gingerbread? Maybe that will get Tiny out of the studio. Eddie B. Toys Lover says, I haven't opened my Lego advent calendar yet. Oh, Eddie B. Toys Lover, you have loads to catch up on. Robert Stidham says, it never snows here in Florida. However, when it gets colder, I'll have a hot chocolate. Robert Stidham, have to keep toasting. And finally, Brandon Chen says, please more raps, Tiny West. Okay, Brandon. More Tiny West. Well, we promise you, if we hit 40,000 subscribers, then Tiny will do a rap. about one of you. And the YouTuber we have selected is Neil66. Tiny, take it away. Tiny West, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, keep subscribing, and if we hit 50,000 subscribers, then we will do a special YouTube Lego News edition. Now, that is all we have time for this week's Lego News. But I'm getting breaking news. Lego Playground, the first ever portal to discover and play with the latest Lego mixed reality experiments, has been announced. The portal brings selected Lego sets and experiences to life in mixed reality experiments and other playful scenarios. It looks absolutely good. Well, that's all we've got time for this week's Lego News. What's going on in the Lego world? What's going on in your world? Play with our latest holiday campaign. Recreate magic in the latest Harry Potter set giveaway and release a brand new range online. It's the Lego News Show. First up this week, our new to Give campaign. Yes, as the festive season is nearly upon us, we want your support to help brighten up the holidays for 500,000 children across the world. Yes, up until the 9th of December, we're looking for you to build a holiday ornament and display it in-store or share it online. For every ornament shared or displayed, we will donate a Lego set to a child in need of play. You can create your own festive build or find instructions and ideas on the Build to Give section of our website. There are 11 different downloadable designs online. Each one is fun, festive, and easy to build. So easy, in fact, our sports reporter Wyler Tess has claimed you can do them blindfolded. Wyler, is this true? It is time. Over here, Wyler. It is time. I've got all the festive bricks I need right here. Nothing can go wrong. Well, good luck then. Your time starts now. Just a little to the left. No, left. Is this it? No, that's a rubber duck. We'll come back to Wyler and see how he's getting on later. Next up, we've launched a magical offer online. The latest Harry Potter gift with purchase set. The set is of the iconic Diagon Alley, featuring Gringotts Bank, Ollivander's One Shop, Flourishing Plots, quality Quidditch supplies, and Weasley's Wizard Weasleys. To tell us more about it, we sent our roving reporter Wester Tull to Diagon Alley to give us a closer look. Wester, are you there? Yes, Tyler. It turns out that I'm a muggle and that I'm not allowed into Diagon Alley. Oh, that's a shame. Yes, Tyler. It is. Stop hearing that. Sorry. Can you tell me anything about the set? Well, I have learned it has 374 pieces. One is the Ollivander minifigure, and there's one which I have here. Well, Wester, are you sure it's safe to have that? It's safe. Safe, of course it's safe. I mean, like, I'm 100% sure that it's safe. 50%. Okay, 10. Okay, well, just be careful. Careful is my middle name, so don't worry. I just want like any side movements. Back to you in the studio time. Thanks, Wester. Next up, the latest Lego range is available online now. The new Lego Extra. These accessory bags have been available in Lego stores for a few months, but are now finally available for purchase online. The new range includes a variety of playmats and bags of extra items from food and plants to bikes and lamps. These are the perfect addition to any build when you want something a little extra. Now, speaking of builds, let's check out our Build to Give build with Wyler. Wyler, how you getting on? You tell me, Tyler. Wyler, that is not one of the festive ornaments or decorations.
Did you want some of that chili oil on it?
Can I start again? Yeah. Okay. While he does that, I'm going to check out your comments. Lego Brick 3000 says, I love this show so much. Best show ever. Oh, thanks, Lego Brick 3000. Jimmy K says, what is called a tiny West or a Lego minifigure? Oh, But the Tiny West is taller. But did you know he models the faces for the Lego minifigures? For example, Tiny, show me the Lego spider costume minifigure from Series 15. Now, Series 12 Lego lifeguard minifigure. Now, what about the Lego weightlifter minifigure from Series 2? And finally, Agent Who says, bro, Tiny, that rap's actually good. Do more. Tiny's not going to be doing any more raps until we... If the Lego Lab channel reaches that many subs, Tiny's going to do a rap about one of our subscribers. Tiny. You get wrapped up in the same time. While he does that, you can check out my videos. This week we're looking at Brick Experimental Channel's video, an unedited insight into the building and testing of their latest project, the Mechanical Bricks. The video is a full 2.5 hours long, but with annotations that can jump you through the process from the build, each test run, and adjustment.
Apparently the mother died? Because his mom died?
You still got it. You can tell to check out my build. This week we're looking at Dan's Brick Toys Coffee Corner build.
Apparently one of the dogs died on the kitchen floor when she was pregnant. And she couldn't do anything about it? Yeah, I saw it. It got out of the yard.
Speaking of builds, let's see how wireless getting on.
Yeah, well, thing's fucking fast. Holy shit.
That's what the first design you did it. I mean, of course it is. I know it was. And so is this. Yeah, no, that's the same as the log. No, it's not. I knew it. But the tree's good. Don't forget to hashtag your festive designs with the hashtag build together.
Well, that was fun.
That's all we've got time for on this week's Lego news and all that's going on in the Lego world. What's going on in your world? Let us know in the comments section.
Charlie?
Easy begins this week.
Never mind, found it. Come on, Jack.
And announce the winner of the latest Lego Ideas contest. It's the Lego News Show. First up this week is finally that time of year again. Tiny's favourite season. It is. No, I'm just giving it that. I know. With December fast approaching, it's time to announce the. What?
Apparently I broke my nose.
Lego calendars. Yes, celebrate the spirit of the
Oh my
season
god, I have my
with
mom's
2018
nose.
Lego advent calendars. As usual,
No.
Lego Star Wars, Lego Friends, and Lego City. Each of the 24 windows counting down to
I have my mom's nose.
December to find
I need to get a nose job. Oh god. I need to get a nose job. Oh my god. My sweet little fucking nose. I like the cute little button. And also I have like this weird bubble in my fucking gums. Russia, Russia, Russia. Yeah, I agree, Russia. Da, 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 na, 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 na. I also Geneva something. I think it's funny. Your city isn't unique.
Hello, friends. My name is JJ. So, supposedly, one of the big differences between life on this continent today compared to like life 40 or 50 years ago is the death of the monoculture, which is to say, half a century ago, people tended to share cultural experiences quite broadly in a way that they just don't anymore. So, for instance, back in 1982, the best-selling musical album in the U.S. was Michael Jackson's Thriller, which sold around 20 million copies. And you compare that to the best-selling album of 2021, which was Adele's 30, which sold just over 1 million copies. And I am sure that many of you have never heard a single song from it. Now,
because once you've heard one Adele song, you've heard all Adele songs.
Age of internet-driven
my boss, whenever Sheena was fighting with her husband, you would know because she would just play Adele.
Even as we continue to customize, there are also a lot of powerful continent-wide forces keeping us more culturally homogenous.
Like if you worked a 10-hour shift, it was a bad shift.
Examples being the relative homogeneity.
It's just like for the whole day.
Sheltered and self-important. We tend to lack a good frame of reference for what life is like in other cities in North America, which makes us often incorrectly identify certain experiences in our city as having unique characteristics that define what it is like to live in our city specifically, when in reality, those things might just be fairly broad urban trends or even the product of deceptive corporate marketing. It all adds up to a situation in which we can often be quite shockingly oblivious to the degree that the culture of our city is less special than we think. I'm hoping that some of the examples to follow will blow your mind in the same way that they blew my mind when I first heard of them. For instance, take the Old Spaghetti Factory. I grew up thinking that the OSF was this special Vancouver restaurant full of all these particularly Vancouver antique knickknacks celebrating Vancouver's unique history. It was only many years later when I traveled to Salt Lake City that I discovered, no, this is actually just a rather generic chain of family restaurants with locations in over 40 cities across this continent. A lot of the antiques that you see displayed on the walls are just mass-produced replicas that you will probably see at any of their locations from Newport Beach to Indianapolis. Just outside of the Vancouver Old Spaghetti Factory, we also have this, a triangular building located at this diagonal intersection. I have no idea what purpose this building serves, but it is heavily sentimentalized in Vancouver culture, appearing on all manner of postcards and souvenirs and things. And yet, this too, I have recently learned, is not a remotely special thing for a city to have. Here is an almost identical triangular building in New York City, for instance. Here's one in Boston, here's one in Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Fort Worth. One of Fort Worth's most iconic buildings, they say. Oh, sweet naive Fort Worth, I was once like you. Okay, now if your city is like mine, you probably also have some sort of trashy alternative newspaper they distribute for free and beat up tin boxes located at every downtown street corner. And inside of the paper, alongside endless escort ads, which you will think reflects very poorly on the publication, you will inevitably find the sex advice column of beloved local writer Dan Savage. It took me many years before I learned that Dan Savage is not in fact from Vancouver at all, but rather Seattle, and that his famous column is simply syndicated in more than 50 different alternative newspapers across the US and Canada, many readers of which probably think he is from their city too. Mass market syndication is one of the sneakiest ways of keeping the monoculture alive, and it tends to provoke a lot of public irritation whenever it is discovered, but the fact is it costs a lot of money to put in a newspaper or a TV show or a radio broadcast, and even big media companies in big cities rarely have the budget to hire as many reporters and writers and editors as it would take to consistently churn out the high-quality tent. Tent is what cool people call content now, just FYI. So as a result, a lot of what you hear and read and watch from local media outlets is very often just a patchwork of tent harvested from large media syndicates who sell pre-made and relatively generic news reports, newspaper columns, and radio shows to local distributors at a much cheaper price than it would cost to produce such things from scratch using local talent. For example, you may have seen this viral clip from the Conan O'Brien show a few years back, where he made a little montage of a bunch of local news anchors all saying the exact same thing.
Who are you really shopping for this holiday season? It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
Well, it's okay. You can admit it if you have bought an item or 2 or maybe 10 for yourself. It's okay, you can admit it. You bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
This seems kind of creepy, but all they're doing is reading the script of some news report their station would have purchased from one of the big American news syndicates, like the Associated Press. Usually what happens in these sort of cases is that the majority of the report is filmed and narrated by employees of the syndicate, meaning that all the local anchors have to do is read a little intro and then cut tape. This is sometimes called a rip and read story, and it's how even a small town TV station can somehow manage to report on the war in Ukraine every night. Now, the example that I think tends to weird out people even more is syndicated radio stations like Kiss FM. Kiss FM is a brand run by the enormous iHeartMedia radio conglomerate and is broadcast in over 30 cities across this continent. They play top 40s type music interspliced with random DJ banter and call-in games and stuff. Every version of Kiss FM is a little bit different, but not by much.
I thought they were saying hits.
And much like the local news stations, a lot of what you hear on Kiss FM is actually recorded in your city, even though it might come off that way. Those wacky morning DJs you love so much might actually be a show that they're just piping in from Chicago or LA or something, with the hosts carefully trained to avoid making references to anything too regionally specific. This is why I tend to play a lot of games to fill the time, or by bantering about very generic news releases. You know, like, hey Joey, did you know that the Marriageological Institute says that 78% of wives say they would give up sex if it meant they never had to empty the dishwasher? Syndicated radio shows do have tricks to fool the audiences into thinking that the show is more local than it actually is, of course. They can get the host to record a special promotional bumper for one specific city and then play that during breaks between the shows to create the illusion that the host is from there. You know,
Shut
it's
up.
just like, hey, I'm Wacky Timothy, and you're listening to Vancouver's best play of the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Or they can do tricks where they're like, and now it's time to do traffic, and then they cut to somebody who actually is in the city, and so on. Sneaky stuff. By the way, talking of radio, have you ever heard those annoying ads for Shane Diamonds or Spence Diamonds in Canada? I used to think that Vancouver was the only city that had an obnoxious diamond company that felt the need to advertise themselves during every single commercial break on the radio. But no, it turns out that these are actually just giant corporations that exist in pretty much every North American city and have apparently just decided to spend their entire advertising budget on radio commercials. Another annoying ad campaign I'm sure you've seen is the Shen Yun dance troupe. These guys will of course be no great mystery to longtime viewers of this channel. Shen Yun is a traveling dance company run by a mostly Chinese-American cult known as the Falun Gong, based out of New York. I've done a couple of videos about the cult's rather extensive propaganda empire that I'm quite proud of and you should really check out. But anyway, while I think that awareness of this is starting to increase, for a long time, I know that many people were inclined to believe that Shen Yun was just some unique thing in their city, likely some sort of reflection of their active and robust Chinese community. But no, because this is primarily a cult propaganda initiative, it is actually the same roving group of people traveling to almost every major city in North America, and increasingly most other major cities around the world as well. And I know this because you guys are always sending me Shen Yun poster sightings in the weirdest of places. But in fairness to Shen Yun, I find it is rather common for city folk to forget that traveling entertainers are a thing. This is particularly the case when it comes to stuff like folk music festivals or jazz festivals or so-called fringe festivals of small-scale theater performances. I think this is even the case with food things like barbecue festivals and stuff. I mean, in theory, all the city has to do to put on a successful festival is convince a lot of big shots to come over and entertain their people, which isn't really that hard to do if you pay them enough. But I have found that people often tend to suffer from the flattering delusion that because their city has a big folk festival or whatever, this somehow reflects their unique deep commitment to the performing arts. I think the same is true for the various outdoor Shakespeare festivals that so many cities have and often imagine reflect so well on their commitment to classic theater, even though many of these performances will also be put on by touring troops of out-of-town actors. Okay, so my Twitter followers were their top picks for things that people tend to think are exclusive to their city, but really aren't. Two nominees in particular proved to be the overwhelming favorites: weather and traffic. When it comes to weather, almost everyone on this continent tends to believe that they live in some uniquely special climate region. I don't know what the platonic ideal of normal weather most people carry around in their heads is, but it seems like a lot of people take it for granted that in an ordinary city, the weather will barely change at all or something.
Why do you need to hear it every 15 minutes?
To meet this impossible standard, you get people running around like, oh my god, 1 minute it's sunny and the next it's raining. What cruel and cursed land is this? Or, as many of you noted,
look outside. That's the weather.
Exact same joke. Well, you know what they say about if you don't like the weather, just wait a few minutes. I feel like a lot of cities also seem to suffer from a similar fantasy that somewhere out there in the normal world, the people get to enjoy 4 distinct seasons, whereas in our uniquely horrible hellscape city, all of the seasons blend together in some monstrous way, which leads to another very common joke that some of you noted. Well, you know what they say about we only got 2 seasons. Winter and construction. Constant inconvenient street construction is, of course, another thing that people tend to believe is a unique horror that only citizens of their beleaguered burg have to endure. I've now, for instance, been to multiple cities where their souvenir shops sell goofy little trinkets of, like, construction pylons because they believe that incessant, annoying road construction is unique and special quirk that contributes to their supposedly uniquely bad traffic. Along with construction, uniquely bad traffic also tends to be blamed on supposedly uniquely bad drivers, who are often assumed to be uniquely ignorant of some very basic rule of the road. As my friend Nakri Sisa puts it, the complaint I always hear is drivers here don't know how to merge. My friend Anna likewise regurgitated this tired joke. Our drivers don't make full stops at stop signs, and we refer to it as the roll or stop. A slight variation on this one is the idea that it is actually the residents of one community over who are the uniquely bad drivers, and thus all of the city's traffic problems should be appropriately blamed on them. This may be bound up in racial stereotypes of the other community, or it may simply reflect a generalized big city snobbishness of the perceived cultural inferiority of a smaller nearby residential area, which is probably part of the hated suburbs. The idea that the integrity of your city's identity is being corrupted by the lesser suburbanites is a very common trope as well. Like, I mean, we all know that the people that come from the suburbs are just a bunch of wannabes who claim to be from, but really aren't. Only people who were born and raised in the throbbing heart of
Insert city name here.
Ian's. You know, I bet when these suburban losers go to Europe, they claim to be from, rather than just actually from some podunk village that no one's ever heard of. I quite enjoyed this tweet from my friend Lachlan, who noted literally every mid-sized city is a growing tech hub. Or this one-word tweet from my friend Chris Spoke, microbreweries. Continuing on the education theme, I've also found that a lot of cities tend
it's a guy who has a fucking brewery on the highway in town who's been there for like since before I was born. He's a fucking bootlegger apparently. Yeah, all you do them microbreweries, give me a fucking break.
Making big fuss about as reflecting the university's unique commitment to student safety. This is basically just the idea of having a bunch of blue lamp security intercoms scattered around the campus so that if anyone ever feels in danger wandering around the campus after dark, they can quickly and easily summon some help. Apparently 90% of American college campuses have these. The other college thing I remember being somewhat disappointed to learn was not exclusive to British Columbia, was this idea of the college campus being overrun with crazy squirrels. But alas, if you go to any university with a big enough outdoor campus, the chances are very high that it will be an entrenched belief within the student body that not only is the school uniquely infested with squirrels, but that the squirrels are uniquely psychotic and hilarious. The squirrels will probably have their own Facebook fan page, and someone will have suggested that the football team should change its name to the Squirrels because they're the real school mascots. So anyway, I think you know where this is heading. I want you guys to give me some examples of things that you have been shocked or disturbed to learn, or not actually things that are particular to your fair city, but rather part of the enormous, heaving, monocultural blob. So let me know in the comments, and if we get enough, maybe we can make an award-winning sequel video. Thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. In most countries, when we think of nationalism, we think of a right-wing movement. We think of politicians like Donald Trump or Marine Le Pen or Nigel Farage. But in Canada, nationalism is a mostly left-wing movement. The most aggressively nationalistic flag-waving people you are likely to meet in Canada are also very likely to be very supportive of things like socialized medicine and gun control and unregulated abortion, even high levels of immigration. In fact, a recent poll found that self-proclaimed Canadian nationalists were the people most likely to feel positively about multiculturalism in Canada. So, how can this be? Well, it's important to remember that nationalism is neither an inherently right-wing nor an inherently left-wing philosophy. It is simply a philosophy that says that the most important thing in politics is protecting the nation. And if a nation defines itself in left-wing terms, it logically follows that the nationalists of that nation will be very left-wing as well, which is the case in Canada. Just a quick clarification before we go any further. I know that people sometimes fight over what exactly a nation is and how it is different from a country or a nation state. In this video, we're going to treat all of these terms as basically interchangeable, which I think is more or less the mainstream understanding of them these days. So anyway, nationalists are all about protecting the nation. But what does that mean? Well, for starters, it means defending the idea that your nation has a reason to exist in the first place. You have to be able to look at the national borders and say, yes, these people living in here have enough in common and are united by enough of a shared national purpose to need their own citizenship and government and flag and all the rest. In many cases, nationalism also means explicitly rejecting the idea of being part of some nearby other country. Think of Pakistan separating from India, or South Sudan separating from North Sudan. Once upon a time, the British Empire controlled much of eastern North America. Then in 1776, 13 of Britain's North American colonies left the empire and formed the United States of America. Some of Britain's smaller northeastern colonies did not support the American War of Independence, and these colonies became collectively known as Canada. From the moment of that divide, Canadian nationalism became inseparably tied to anti-Americanism because the entire existence of what would become the independent nation of Canada traced its origin to the rejection of the creation of the United States. And because the United States was a uniquely political country, a country based around a particular form of government as opposed to race or religion or geography or something like that, this meant that Canadian nationalism was always destined to be very political as well. Now, in the first decades after the American Revolution, it was not at all obvious that the Canadian colonies had made the right choice. Unlike the United States, which had successfully established a democratic system of government that was accountable to the white male population, the Canadian colonies continued to be ruled by an authoritarian and corrupt and incompetent British colonial regime that was accountable to no one. By the 1830s, this had led to a lot of riots and protests by the growing Canadian middle class, many of whom wanted their colonies to reject British rule and join the United States. This led in 1838 to the appointment of a guy named Lord Durham as the Governor General of the Canadian colonies. Unlike some of Canada's past governors, Lord Durham was a very respected and intelligent man, and during his brief time as governor, he wrote this big report advising the British on how they could avoid losing Canada to the Americans. His big idea was for Britain to unite all of the Canadian colonies and allow them to rule themselves through their own democratically elected parliament while still remaining part of the British Empire. Here is how he explained it.
Such a union would form a great and powerful people, possessing the means of securing good and responsible government for itself, and which, under the protection of the British Empire, might in some measure counterbalance the preponderant and increasing influence of the United States on the American continent. If we wish to prevent the extension of this influence, it can only be done by raising up for the North American colonists some nationality of his own, by elevating these small and unimportant communities into a society having some objects of a national importance, and by thus giving their inhabitants a country which they will be unwilling to see absorbed, even into one more powerful.
And this is very much what happened. The Canadian colonies were given democratic self-government and eventually unified into a single country. And through this, any interest in joining the United States slowly faded away. And just as Lord Durham predicted, this provided a good context for a sort of Canadian nationalism to grow. At first, it was a nationalism defined by a sort of aggressive gratitude to the British Empire, that is sometimes known as the philosophy of loyalism. Here is how the famous Canadian historian J.L. Granatstein defines loyalism in his very good book entitled Yankee Go Home, Canadians and Anti-Americanism.
One of the many aims of those who created the tradition was to argue that there had been and still were important distinctions between Canadians and Americans. The ideology of loyalism meant loyalty to the monarch and empire, and adherence to the beliefs and institutions essential to the preservation of a way of life different from that in the United States.
By the late 19th century, hardcore Canadian nationalists had come to define themselves through a kind of extreme loyalty to everything British. So they always wanted Canadians to fight in British wars and fly the Union Jack everywhere and have a deep and passionate love for the British royal family and things like that. Britain was viewed as Canada's wise and loving protector, keeping the country safe from those horrible American traitors to the crown. I should also note that a lot of this Anglophilia was also tied up in a very narrow ethnic notion of what it meant to be Canadian, which is to say a good Canadian was not just somebody who was loyal to the so-called British connection, but was also of good British ethnic stock himself. There was a lot of looking down on America as a country that had too many blacks and Jews and Mexicans, which just shows how this idea of the perfectly British Canada was kind of a cover for a lot of more racist views as well. But in any case, it would be fair to say that the Canadian nationalism of that era was quite right-wing, but this philosophy didn't last long. The British Empire was already sort of starting to break down by the early 20th century, and as Canada grew to be a more wealthy and successful country in its own right, a lot of the Canadian political establishment decided that they didn't really like or need the British connection all that much. Canada negotiated full political independence from Britain in 1931, and from then on considered itself a country that was equal to Britain, not subordinate to it. Now, there still exists a kind of soft aftermath of British nationalism in Canada, and it still tends to mostly revolve around being proud of British-style things that Canada has and America doesn't, like a political connection to the British royal family, or the countries of the Commonwealth, or the Westminster parliamentary system, and things like that. And even today, Canadians are still taught to be weirdly smug about the British role in the War of 1812. But the big story of late 20th century Canada was the development of a new left-wing form of anti-American nationalism to replace the old right-wing one. In the aftermath of the Second World War and the beginning of the Cold War, anti-Americanism became a popular cause all over the world. Some of this was born from resentment at how powerful America had become in the aftermath of the war, and a lot of it was the result of propaganda efforts from the USSR, which had come to see the United States as its main rival in the new post-war world order. The most popular strain of post-war anti-Americanism consisted of portraying the United States as this very reactionary, right-wing capitalist empire, a cruel society full of racists and gun violence and serial killers and religious maniacs and rampant poverty. To varying degrees, this became a popular way of looking at the United States all over the world, but I would say it gained particular traction in Canada just because there was a real need for a new style of anti-Americanism to fill the void left by the departure of the anti-Americanism of the British Empire. And as the 20th century drew to a close, a very new form of nationalism had taken root in Canada. Whenever the Canadian government did anything left-wing, it could be portrayed as something that was very proud and patriotic, because of course it was something that those evil right-wing Americans would never do. Canada's decision to not participate in the Vietnam War and the introduction of universal government-run health insurance became two big new sources of patriotism, for instance. And so too did the passage of broadly liberal legislation on things like guns and abortion and LGBT rights and immigration. In other words, Canada's anti-American purpose was completely reimagined. The old loyalist notion of a Canada that was better than America because it had maintained ties to the British Empire and British institutions was put aside and replaced by a new theory that said that Canada's purpose was to be better than America by having more left-wing government policies. And this wound up being a much stronger, more popular form of nationalism nationalism than the old British kind had ever been. Canada's British anti-Americanism had always focused mostly on foreign policy and like the symbols and ceremonies of British politics. Most normal Canadians didn't really care much about this or even found it a little bit demeaning. Stuff like Medicare and gun control, however, was very attractive to what was now a very large Canadian middle class who had a lot of anxieties about personal safety and financial security that liberal social programs of this sort helped address. A recent poll from the Association for Canadian Studies found that most Canadians now consider the Canadian healthcare system to be a bigger source of national pride than the flag, constitution, or national anthem. Canada's healthcare system is not actually rated that highly in the global scheme of things, but at least it's free, and America's isn't, and that's all that most Canadians really care about. The popularity of this kind of thing is also one of the reasons why life has become quite difficult for conservative politicians in Canada, since so much of Canadian nationalism is now bound up in left-wing social programs that conservatives generally don't like. They are constantly under attack for being unpatriotic. The left-wing Canadian nationalists of today will reliably paint conservatism as some sort of sinister American ideology that has no place in this country. And conservatives don't really have a good answer to that. They basically just have to fake liking social programs they obviously don't and hope that people will buy it. I mean, you sometimes run into Canadian conservatives who are like, hey, maybe we can bring back the old British nationalism. But of course, that's extremely difficult to do given how much racial and colonialist baggage that stuff has at this point. Today, most polling data suggests that Canadians overwhelmingly regard the United States as a society much, much worse than their own. For example, here is some data from a 2016 survey from the Angus Reid Institute. And just in case anybody was wondering, this poll was taken before Donald Trump was elected president. Only 15% of Canadians described the United States as a caring society, compared to 68% who described Canada that way. Only 17% agreed that America is a country I would be proud to live in. And why is that? Well, only 8% of Canadians said that they think America has safe cities, and only 17% said it has a healthy natural environment. 64% of Canadians said that they think America is full of racial division, while only 20% think that Canada has that problem. Those last figures are also a good reminder of why, contrary to popular belief, nationalism does not have to be bound up in racism or white supremacy. If we accept the idea that nationalism is primarily about thinking that your country is better than some other country, then it logically follows that one of the ways you might think your country is better is that it is less racist than that horrible bigoted place over there. Anyway, as you can probably tell, I'm not a big fan of Canadian nationalism. I think it's an extremely petty ideology, mostly based around Canadian insecurity and these very gross and extreme stereotypes of America that are not fair or accurate at all. But the problem with Canadian nationalism isn't just that I find it annoying. Nationalism is an ideology that tends to revolve heavily around what the government does, because of course the government is what runs the nation. And when you have a very nationalistic government, as Canada usually does, one of the things that inevitably happens is that you develop this class of people who try to secure a lot of power and money for themselves by aggressively sucking up to that government and trying to portray the things that they want as things that are in the national interest. Canada does basically all of its trade with the United States because the United States is a huge, successful, prosperous country, just brimming with customers and consumer goods that also happens to be right next door. By any objective measure, being the number one trading partner of the United States has been something that has been very good for Canada and is a big reason why Canada is one of the richest countries in the entire world. But there has always been tremendous insecurity about this fact in Canada because America is supposed to be the bad guy, right? Trying to make Canada trade less with America has thus been one of the great ongoing projects of Canadian nationalists over the years. Two of the most divisive elections in Canadian history in 1911 and 1988 were fought over this issue. I want to show you a clip from the 88 election. The Conservative candidate, Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, was in favor of establishing free trade with America, while the Liberal candidate, former Prime Minister John Turner, was against it. Listen carefully to the language they use as they argue about the issue in this debate.
I today, sir, as a Canadian, believe genuinely in what I am doing. I believe it is right for Canada. I believe that in my own modest way, I am nation building because I believe this benefits Canada. I love Canada. We built a country, east and west and north. We built it on an infrastructure that deliberately resisted the continental pressure of the United States. For 120 years, we've done it with one signature of a pen. You've reversed that, thrown us into the north-south influence of the United States, and will reduce us, I'm sure, to a colony of the United States, because when the economic levers go, the political independence is sure to come.
You see that Prime Minister Mulroney is trying to argue in favor of free trade on the grounds that it is good for the Canadian economy. And then Prime Minister Turner basically says that some things are more important than the economy, like not being part of the United States. And in the end, they both sort of won. Mulroney was re-elected, and Canada got free trade with the United States. But there was also a ton of exemptions made for certain industries in which it was deemed part of the national interest to protect them from American competition. This included banking, telecommunications, transportation, dairy, and anything that could be slotted into the broad category of culture, including movies, music, television, and news. Protected from U.S. competition, Canadian companies that specialize in these industries have become very large and successful, but also tend to straddle Canadians with very high prices for very subpar products and services. For example, it has been estimated that Canadians pay some of the highest milk prices on Earth because of the degree that we block cheaper U.S. dairy imports. Canadians likewise pay some of the highest cell phone fees on Earth and have some of the crappiest plans because the Canadian telephone industry is dominated by a few large Canadian corporations, and we don't allow the American companies to come up here and compete with them. As a headline in the Financial Post recently put it, this kind of setup is not good for consumers, but great for investors. Or in other words, while the vast majority of Canadians are getting screwed, the small minority of people who own these protected companies or own stocks in them are making a lot of money and doing just fine. The existence of large government-protected companies making a lot of money on the backs of the common man seems like the sort of thing you'd expect left-wingers to be very up in arms about. But left-wingers in Canada do not tend to be bothered that much by this sort of thing. They tend to be very nationalistic and thus buy into this idea that protecting Canada from America matters more than anything else. So is there an alternative to all of this? Is there a way to escape the hysterical and destructive anti-American nature of Canadian nationalism? I'm actually not really sure that there is, just because Canada's whole existence is basically permanently tied to being not America. So until the day comes when Canada and America join together, anti-Americanism will always be a big part of what this country is all about. But that being said, I do think that one potentially viable alternative to nationalism is something that we could call culturalism. Culturalism means honoring the naturally existing culture of a place rather than some vision of the national interest dreamed up by a government looking to justify its own existence, or special interests seeking money and power. Canadians and Americans share what is basically a common culture. I made a whole video about this. But Canadians are generally unable to appreciate their culture because we are taught to only find worth in things that make us different or better than America. This results in Canadians having a deep lack of gratitude for the many things that actually make us quite distinct in the global scheme of things. Instead, all we have is an omnipresent national anxiety that Canada is this weak, fragile, failing place because we're too much like America, or a kind of arrogant hypocrisy in which Canadians are very righteously anti-American while also lacking any self-awareness of just how American they are. Now, culture is obviously a very difficult thing to define, particularly in diverse societies like Canada and America, but I do think it is entirely possible to define North American culture in an organic, bottom-up way, a way that looks to the lived experiences of ordinary people and seeks to celebrate the commonalities that unite us as citizens of a shared continent, including geography, language, and entertainment, customs of work, food, and family, and values of liberty, tolerance, and justice. It is through this, and not the worship of an arbitrary national division, that Canadians have a recipe for a sense of identity that is healthy and useful and meaningful. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. This is a video I have been wanting to make for a while. It's sort of in-depth deconstruction of the Canadian identity, sort of counterbalance to some of the lighter, more superficial stuff I often make with Canada I made last week. And talking of last week's video, as predicted, this channel has now officially passed over 100,000 subscribers. Thanks so much again to everyone. If you enjoy the content that I make, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, consider making a Patreon donation, and be sure to tune in next week.
Want strong teeth? Help your body replenish vital minerals with new Pronamel Mineral Boost.
Hello friends, my name is JJ. So the other day, I made a video in which I attempted to explain this incredibly complicated 36-dimension Canadian political compass, and my conclusion was that although I do think that this thing is generally pretty well informed and can be useful for learning about some aspects of Canadian political culture and history, it is ultimately a pretty flawed educational tool. In the same way that I think the political compass in general is a flawed educational tool. I explained all of this in a bit more detail in my award-winning video on quadrant theory, but basically it is important to always remember that the political compass was designed to be a tool of persuasion, not information. The men who designed the political compass did so primarily because they wanted to persuade you of the attractiveness of their libertarian-style political philosophy. And they did this by framing all other political philosophies as being inherently authoritarian and oppressive. So, right off the bat, there's a certain level of straw manning inherent in this thing. It frames the political landscape in a particular way because the goal is making you sympathetic to the libertarian point of view and esoteric philosophy that people tend to otherwise have a hard time understanding. But a bigger problem with the political compass, at least in the way that people often use it on the internet these days, stems from its basic geometric design. The men who made the compass never intended for it to imply that our political world is divided into 4 equally sized ideological factions. It is just a mathematical chart illustrating the idea that it is theoretically possible for somebody's individual beliefs to be plotted anywhere on this 4-way spectrum. But when you look at the way that internet people like to play with this chart, the kids like to fill it up with ideologies or politicians or whatever in perfectly equal proportion. This was certainly the case with the Canadian political compass we looked at. In being perfectly filled up this way, the chart implies that Canadian politics is defined by 4 equally sized factions: authoritarian right, authoritarian left, libertarian right, and libertarian left. Leaving aside whether these are coherent ideological factions in their own right, the problem is that modern, middle-class, first-world, democratic, liberal societies like Canada do not have a politics that is nearly this ideological or polarized. This is because extreme polarization and factionalizing of this sort tends to only really occur in a country experiencing severe social inequalities or societal breakdown. In a stable middle-class democracy, by contrast, you have a social order that is broadly working for most people, which brings a certain conservatism to politics and pushes the political culture to the center. Politicians seek to win power by playing off the insecurities and fears of a generally prosperous middle-class electorate who rarely think of who they are or what they want in ideological terms. So all that being said, how would I more accurately depict all of the different factions of Canadian politics, you ask? Well, let me introduce you to a revolutionary new system, which I call the 35 tribes theory. Rather than worry about where Canadians fall on some sort of ideological axis, I have just used my knowledge as a professional Canadian political analyst to identify 35 discrete factions that tend to come up the most in conversations about Canadian politics. Some of these are voter segments, some are factions of the political elite, some are more intellectuals who tend to hear mostly from in the Canadian media, but collectively, they all shape what we would call Canada's political culture. Now, some members of my 35 tribes are similar to the ones that we saw on the political compass, but since I'm less concerned with meeting quotas of ideologies, mine tend to have more to do with identities of class and culture and geography that aren't so easily sorted philosophically. All right, so let's just get into it. I will now go through the list and describe each one of these 35 identities to you, one at a time. And because I know that you guys liked it when I did it improv last time, I will proceed to do the rest of this video unscripted as well. All right, so the first one I have here is the social conservative. So social conservatives are usually considered one of the major factions within the Conservative Party proper. Whenever the Conservative Party is electing a new leader, as it is right now, the preferences of the social conservatives are always a big part of the analysis of the party. Social conservative is really just another name for like the Christian right or evangelical sort of faction of the party. These are people that have very religiously inspired social views, particularly as it relates to abortion and LGBT rights. When in power, the Conservative Party leadership tends to kind of clamp down on social conservatives because they're seen as a bit of a net liability because a lot of their social views are quite unpopular in modern Canada. But there are a lot of socially conservative Christians in Canada, and they tend to flex a lot of their power behind the scenes, particularly in the context of something like a leadership race to pick the next head of the Conservative Party. All right, and then on the opposite extreme, next to the social conservative, I have the Red Tory. This is another supposed faction within the Conservative Party base, although I would say it is probably a faction whose influence is fast decreasing. A Red Tory is basically a very moderate conservative. They call them Red Tories because the traditional color of the Conservative Party is blue, the traditional color of the Liberal Party is red, so you get it, they're like liberal conservatives. There is a kind of thinking now that the Red Tories had a lot of sort of political sway in like the 70s and maybe even the early 80s within the old Conservative Party, which was explicitly called the Progressive Conservative Party. But since the 1990s and the 2000s and the 2010s, the thinking is that the new Conservative Party, the Conservative Party of Canada, has become a lot more ideological, a lot more kind of dogmatically orthodox in its conservative politics, and a lot less open-minded to granting influence to the more moderate faction of the party. And so a lot of people would argue that, in turn, that faction of the party has mostly wandered off, joined the Liberal Party or whatever. But this idea of, like, an internal conflict between, like, the orthodox conservative faction and the Red Tory faction is something you still hear played up a lot in the press when it comes to the internal affairs of the Conservative Party. I guess in American parlance, a Red Tory is sort of like a rhino. All right, and next to him, we have the climate doomer. This is basically somebody whose political philosophy, political priorities revolve almost entirely around the issue of climate change. As I think is the case in most countries, climate change has risen a lot in recent years to become one of the dominant issues of Canadian politics. But when I think of this faction in particular, I really sort of think about sort of the young people for whom climate change is really an issue that fills them with like so much existential dread for the future, like that there is no reason for our politics to be engaged with almost any other issue except for climate change, just because the consequences are so catastrophic that you cannot have a government in good conscience that can leave this issue to be even the second priority. And I think that you're starting to see in Canada a lot more like climate activism led by young people for whom this issue is just of such exceeding importance that it even is starting to take a bit of, I would say, an emotional, psychological toll on them. This is something that I think very much as being a dividing issue between my generation and like the Zoomer generation. Whenever I meet young people that are interested in politics, people younger than myself who are interested in politics, I'm often a little bit taken aback by just how seriously they take climate change and just how much of a central animating principle it is in their entire political consciousness and their consciousness of what matters most in this life. All right, and next we have the ethnic vote. So Canada is, of course, a very diverse country, and it has become a lot more diverse in recent decades due to our extremely high intake of immigration. And this high intake of immigration, coupled with the relative ease at which you can become a citizen of Canada and thus a voter, has led to an increased focus being given to the so-called ethnic vote, which is the vote of new Canadians or ethnic and religious minorities. They're kind of one and the same in Canada because the vast majority of immigrants that come to Canada are now racial and religious minorities. There can sometimes be a somewhat kind of patronizing way in which we talk about the votes of these people in this country. There's kind of a sense that because in many cases the quote-unquote ethnic vote is comprised of people who have arrived in Canada relatively recently, that they can kind of be, manipulated with various explicit appeals to their faith and their background and maybe even the politics of the country that they left. There's been sort of a rise of a new class of Canadian politician who build their reputation on the pretense that they're very good at sort of wrangling the ethnic code in this way. You know, these are often white politicians that sort of imagine themselves to understand the concerns of the various different ethnic demographics that have risen to become quite prominent in, particularly in big cities in modern Canada. You know, politicians like Jason Kenney, who is the Premier of Alberta, and Patrick Brown, who is the Mayor of Brampton, Ontario. You know, these would be two very prominent examples of white Canadian politicians who imagine themselves as being very good at sort of wrangling the ethnic vote in various ways. You know, this entails things like going to their churches and temples and stuff, and going to their holiday festivals and things, and really sort of pressing the flesh and glad handling and pandering in ways like that. The political parties now also run a lot of immigrants as candidates these days, which has led to the rise of a similar sort of like political figure who is very much sort of seen as being of a particular ethnic demographic and can thus, presumably kind of wrangle their votes as one of them. Again, like this is all somewhat distasteful stuff to talk about, and I don't want to be sort of too reductive about it. But this is, I think, a kind of narrative that has become much more prominent as Canada has become a more diverse society. But powerful as the ethnic vote is, nothing can compare to the Quebec vote. Quebec is, of course, the second biggest province of Canada, the French-speaking province with a French-Canadian majority population. This isn't mathematically true, but there is a kind of conventional wisdom in Canada that the path to power, the path to becoming Prime Minister, runs through Quebec. So unless you have a strategy to win the Quebec vote, you're never going to be close to running the show. Some of this is the result of a kind of sort of patriotic idea of what Canada is, that the idea that Canada is kind of like primarily a union between the French Canadians and the English Canadians, and that therefore, like a government with any sort of like moral credibility has to have a strategy to win the Quebec vote, otherwise they're kind of illegitimate in some sense. But anyway, this has given a lot of attention being given to sort of what it is that the Quebecers want, what it is that the French Canadian Quebecers in particular want from their government, from their politicians. These days I feel like the conventional wisdom is that Quebecers have become a lot more sort of nationalistic in a kind of culturally sort of chauvinistic kind of way. And so to win their votes, you kind of have to pander a bit on some of that stuff. Some of their sort of French supremacist language laws and the desire to sort of limit immigration and stuff like this. These are the kind of things that you kind of have to pretend to be on side with if you want to win the Quebec vote, just because the Quebec voters are in a sort of nationalistic mood these days. The big thing is that you always have to pledge to respect Quebec's jurisdiction. The idea that even if you do wind up as Prime Minister in charge of the federal government, you will always respect Quebec's right to make its own decisions for itself. That's how you win the Quebec vote. Next to the Quebec vote, we have the Union Man. So Canada is not like Europe. We do not have a hugely unionized labor force. These days, most Canadian union members are workers for either the federal or provincial governments, which is to say public sector unions. And because the Canadian labor movement is now so heavily dominated by public sector unions, unions have a lot of pull in the political conversations these days. So many of the services that government provides are carried out by public sector unionized employees, whether that is at the schools or at the hospitals. So as a result, the government's ability to sort of govern in these realms often requires making peace with the public sector unions in some way, which is to say nothing of just the number of public sector union workers who just staff the government bureaucracy as well. That's not something to be underestimated either. How important it is to have the public sector unions on your side if you just want to be able to carry out your governing agenda in a sort of smooth and efficient way. Public sector unions and their leaders tend to be more allied with the parties of the left